And so you may have noticed that this is Rosh HaShanah. So in our house, the shofar has been blowing loud and often this Elul as my daughter Elena tries to master Tekiah, Shvarim, Teruah. And as I sat to consider this sermon, it occurred to me that young children have no need of Cheshbon HaNefesh, an accounting of the soul. Everything in their world is new, filled with wonder and immediate. Elena loves information, and school has been a great source of non-fiction information, Dad. She has recently been asking me to read from the small Torah scroll I have in my office at home, specifically Genesis. I'm sure many of you have this experience in your homes. The story of creation. And then she painted her own version and described what she was painting. It struck me strongly enough that I'm going to share it with you. She says, "At first, the world was black and white, and everything in it was black and white. And then there was a rainbow, and the colors of the rainbow she drew across the top. And then the colors seeped down and colored the flowers and the trees and the grass and the animals and the whole world. And so she drew the colors filling the world. Her world is truly filled with wonder." Children don't have context as to time and space yet, which is why significant events like the fact that my wife's family came to visit from Brisbane, not for Rosh HaShanah, but of course for the match last night, what can I tell you, is boiled down to counting sleeps until their arrival. It's a context that they can grasp. By the way, they're celebrating, not grieving today. When they're sick, however, as we have had in the past few weeks, there's also no context of time. The medicine will work soon. That doesn't mean much to them. You will get better in a few days. Petri dishes. Their world is immediate and hopefully simple. They don't sin. They're not capable of it. "There's nothing in my pocket, Dad," says Emily, 3-year-old, as it bulges with contraband, toys that are prohibited to go to kindy, and that they're trying to smuggle out of the house. An accounting of their soul is 1 minute per year that they're alive. So 3 minutes for Emily and 5 minutes for Elena in a time out to reset behavior, and then we move on. But Rosh Hashanah is known as Yom Teruah, a day of blasting, a wake-up call. It's a traditional sermon for this day, Cheshbon HaNefesh, an accounting of the soul. We're given a window to reflect, repair, and repent prior to Yom Kippur. And for those among us who are procrastinators, I know that's none of you, but it's me, who haven't started yet, the shofar is the alarm clock telling us that we're running out of time. And so as a big fan of Aaron Sorkin's TV shows, The West Wing, The Newsroom, Studio 60, Sports Night, the last episode of many of the seasons or series is almost always titled, "What kind of day has it been?" Generally, Aaron Sorkin is then only too happy to lay out exactly what kind of day it's been and what has happened to each character, and often it gives insight into their actions and backstory, ready to move on into the next season. When we get to Elul, we have the opportunity to ask the same question. What kind of day has it been? Actually, what kind of week, month, or year has it been? Can I say it's been a better year this year? As we prepare ourselves for what comes next and to be the best version of ourselves as we approach it. Reflection and introspection are not self-indulgent. In Genesis, at the end of each day, God reflected on what had been accomplished and evaluated it, and God said that it was good, except for one where it was very good. Rabbi Soloveitchik pointed out that one of the guiding principles of Musar practice, the ethical practices, is to walk in God's way and to emulate the divine. Therefore, we should take this time offered during Elul as an opportunity for Cheshbon HaNefesh. Rabbi Ruth Adar wrote that perhaps when we talk about the month of Elul, we can expand a bit from the perhaps precious notion of an accounting of the soul and ask, what does my life add up to right now? In what ways have I made the world better? In what ways have I made it worse? How do I affect the lives of others? Are their lives easier or harder because of my behavior? The questions themselves take us out of the realm of self. We ask not who or what has been good for me or to me, but for whom or what have I been good? The days of awe are not about beating ourselves up. Jewish tradition ascribes to each human being an infinite, immeasurable worth. There is no such thing as a worthless human being in Judaism. This is not about our worth as individuals. It is about the worth of our behavior as individuals. What are we doing with our lives? Introspection is the essential prelude to meaningful change. If we approach the process humbly and sincerely, it can provide us with a map for more worthy living. In a sermon by Rabbi Angela Buchtal at Central Synagogue in New York City, she was actually one of my classmates. She speaks of three names given to the Jewish people by God. Ivrim, Hebrews, those who crossed over, given to Abraham and his family after they crossed the Euphrates River to become strangers in a strange land at the behest of God, telling Abraham to Lech Lecha, go forth. Yehudim, which comes from the name given to Judah, Jacob's fourth son from his second wife Leah. The name means to give thanks, and we are many times in the Torah instructed to be grateful. We say 100 blessings per day according to the Talmud. The Torah in Genesis 33, 9-11 appears to make a point contrasting Jacob's kol, all, to Esau's rav, which means plenty, when thinking about the gifts we have been given. The difference between appreciating having been given everything and therefore happy to share this abundance compared to having been given plenty or lots is therefore still with an eye to what our neighbor's share was. One provokes generosity, the other evokes a sense of potential envy. The third name is, of course, Yisrael. When Jacob wrestles with the mystical being, the angel, he dislocates his hip, but is given the new name Yisrael by God. One who grapples. It means that we are to challenge, argue for truth, and struggle with what it means to be a good Jew. Every year, the Yamim Noraim is a time for us to cross over from routine into this time of spiritual awakening and reflection. If we are lucky, many of us have too many blessings to count. Even in our hardest years and in a place of safety and prosperity, we are more blessed than so many others. And we grapple with ourselves. What have we done this year that we wish we could undo? Where have we fallen short? Throughout the high holiday services, the Vidui, the confession, is said 5 times and incorporates an alphabet of woes, giving us multiple opportunities and even a checklist to help us work through these questions. Every year, the ledger where we account for our year in review is often weighted in favor of falling short. I meet regularly with members of our community, and often they talk about these areas of their life where they feel they're falling short. As friends, as partners, as spouses, as parents, as children to aging parents. In a quote ascribed to Abraham Lincoln, he said, "If you look for the bad in people, you will surely find it." This also applies when we look within ourselves. Often it is the best amongst us who are the last to recognize that for all the areas where they feel they have not lived up to their own expectations, the things they do for family, for community, and for others exemplify a living Judaism. This was exemplified by so many who came to Torah today. We are told that everyone is created in God's image. When we are at our best, we can see that in others. We have tolerance, patience, understanding, forbearance when our friends, family fall short of what we know they could be. But are we that kind to ourselves? When we look in the mirror, do we ever see that we too have facets of the divine? A true accounting needs to be that. Truth, emet. The good with the bad. Not just where have I fallen short this year, where do I need to continue to improve? That is a necessary and central part of our tradition during the Yamim Noraim. But also, what have I done that I am proud of? Take a moment, think about it. What have you done that you are proud of? What have I done which reflects my duty towards Tikkun Olam, repairing the world? Each day during our morning liturgy, we read from Mishnah Peah, and we read it this morning. These are the obligations without measure, whose reward too is without measure. Mishnah Peah speaks of honoring our parents, performing acts of kindness, compassion, dealing graciously with our guests, visiting the sick, accompanying the dead to burial, pursuing peace. And the study of Torah encompasses them all. So many of our congregation are daily performing these commandments. In our Nourished Food Kitchen with refugees and asylum seekers through Project Dignity, in caring for family members who might be sick, in caring for aging parents, the community Tahara group, keeping our gardens beautiful, keeping our members connected when they are ill or unable to attend in person, helping our office team by performing tasks that free them to do other work, and being a gracious welcomer to our members when they come to shul. Our board who work in the background to heal our community and help it flourish, Ledor Vador, from generation to generation, just to name a few. What if this year, in addition to New Year's resolutions that often don't make it past breaking the fast, we were to focus on pursuing the edicts of Mishnah Peah, making a concerted effort to amplify the good we are already doing? Perkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, states that the best path for people to choose is the one that is a pride to the ones who pursue it. Rabbi Angela Buchtal spoke of Tiferet, pride, as one of these obligations without measure. Pride in this case is not an arrogant pride, what we say we are, but rather an authentic pride, which comes from what we do and how we behave. In Judaism, we are judged not by our thoughts, but by our actions, not by what we say, but by what we do. As we move from Elul to Tishrei, our reflections need to become a plan of action. What are we doing that we need to stop? How do we augment the good things we are already doing and amplify them? There is so much happening in the world, so much of it is in need of repair. In the past year, this has included physical repair, earthquakes in Turkey, Morocco, Syria, floods in Libya, devastating fires across the Northern Hemisphere. There is a growing division and polarization in our communities. Populism, tribalism, isms in general don't tend to be good. Elie Wiesel said, "The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. In Dvarim, Deuteronomy 22:3, God instructs us, "Lo tuchal lehitalem," you must not remain indifferent. When we see brokenness, whether in ourselves or in our world, it is incumbent on us to work to repair it. As our rabbis have said countless times through the ages, "Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor," it is not up to us to finish the work, but neither are we free to absolve ourselves of it. Yet this can feel overwhelming. I read an article by Andrea Schwartz who talked about Eric Lander when he was sworn in as the director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. Professor Lander, a man who helped to map the human genome, opted to take his oath on a volume of Pirkei Avot. When asked about Pirkei Avot, Professor Lander said that, and I quote, "We are all part of a continuous chain of people who are devoted to repairing the world." I find great comfort in the idea of this continuous chain. I am carrying on from someone else, and someone else will eventually take the baton from me. But the repairing the world sounds too big, like painting the harbor bridge or some other seemingly impossible metaphor, endless task. In Parashat Vayera, Abraham tries to negotiate with God to spare Sodom, but is ultimately unsuccessful. Schwartz argues that this parasha provides insight into the second part of the Mishnah, Lehibatel mimenu. We are not free to desist, neglect, or ignore the task. Don't despair. Don't disengage. Don't underestimate your power and impact. Maimonides, Rambam, said, Tilmad vaz tavo lastot. Study, comprehend, choose. Reflection gives us time to appreciate a situation and make a plan. Study, comprehend, choose. Choose to act. Choose how to act. Choose ahavat chinam, gratuitous love. In a tribute to Professor Mark Baker, Michel Zion wrote that the key to compassion is learning to live with vulnerability and brokenness. He went on, Rosh HaShanah is a day of human vulnerability, and we try to reach beyond ourselves to community, tradition, eternity, seeking compassion. When our vulnerability shows we can harden defensively or we can open to compassion, recognizing that we are all vulnerable, each in our own way. And the more we practice compassion down here, the more we evoke compassion from up there, or so we pray. And try to practice compassion ourselves in this world that so desperately needs it. And so over the coming year, if we arrive at this point next year and can say that our actions give us a sense of authentic pride, of tiferet, if we feel that after our period of introspection and cheshbon hanefesh, that the ledger in our head is heavily weighted towards the good we have put out into the world, then we can stand before God at Yom Kippur, stand with our family and community, and honestly seek forgiveness for the areas where we fell short. We are actualizing, living our Judaism. And so in a few moments when this shofar sounds, it is our call to action. What kind of day has it been? Fortunately, you didn't have Elena sounding it for you at 6 a.m., as we did and as our neighbors thoroughly enjoyed, I'm sure. When the shofar sounds again on Yom Kippur, the gates will have closed. Cheshbon hanefesh, an honest reflection, the good with the bad. But as you plan for the year ahead, focus on growing the good. This is how we repair our world. Mishnah Peah teaches us that these acts don't need to be grand. The impact we have on the world is not denoted by size. And so with this call to action, I wish you all Shana Tova Umetuka. May you have a year of health and happiness, of wholeness and of holiness. May we all go from strength to strength. Ken Yiratzon.